When this news about Pennsylvania Democratic State Representative Brian Sims harassing pro-life women on the street broke, I couldn't recall where I had seen him before, but I knew I remembered this obnoxious beard of self-righteousness from somewhere. And then I searched around and oh yeah, he holds the Guinness World Record for smuggest finger flipping of all time, set last year when Vice President Mike Pence visited Philadelphia and Brian took to Facebook to demonstrate his tolerance in response to Pence's alleged bigotry. "Get bent and get out," he says, with all the love he otherwise claims to hold. And he adds, "While you're here, maybe even talk to a woman without your wife in the room." I love this. So you set the precedent that all women are to be believed, but then rip a guy for avoiding a situation that would put a woman's word against his. That's an entirely sensible response to the standard that you advocate. And by the way, this approach ensures that no women will ever be abused by Mike Pence, yet you attack him as some sort of an abuser. Anyway, those were the good old days of yesteryear, back when Brian's edgy cred was at least based on attacking his fellow men. But those days are long gone. Brian has since moved up the progressive virtue ladder to new levels of obnoxious contradiction, like attacking women in the name of protecting women, or installing a bright glowing halo above his own head in the name of his hatred for religion. Honestly, the list of insane contradictions in this viral video of him harassing an elderly woman bothers me more than the harassment itself. It's hard to believe that anybody could totally lack self-awareness to this degree, but apparently Brian does. To set the context, Brian was outside of Planned Parenthood Southeastern Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, where he was live streaming on Periscope saying, "Push back against Planned Parenthood protesters, please. They prey on young women and use white privilege and shame. They're racist, classist bigots who need and deserve our righteous opposition. Push back, please."
Hi everyone, Representative Brian Sims here, and I'm once again out in front of Planned Parenthood of Southeastern Pennsylvania. It's not only in my district, it's the most heavily protested Planned Parenthood, I believe, in the country.
The most heavily protested. In that day's case, it was a heavy protest of one, apparently. And so unfortunately for this old lady, she gets the full force of Brian's righteous opposition all to herself.
Today's protester, now, she is an old white lady who's going to try to avoid showing you her face. So I have a couple questions for you, ma'am. How many children have you clothed today? I'm sorry, I missed your answer. How many children have you clothed today? Have you fed any children today?
You see, Brian donates his beard clippings to make sweaters for those less fortunate. That's how he earned his spot on the moral high ground. Just kidding. He actually steals your tax dollars to do that. You know, like a real man of honor. Contradiction number one. Brian's main point, his main justification for harassing this lady, is that it's wrong to shame someone for exercising a constitutional right. He says this several times.
You just stood out in front of a Planned Parenthood shaming people for something that they have a constitutional right to do. It's an attack on the Constitution. It's an attack on the rights of every single person coming here. You're out here shaming people for something that they have a constitutional right to do. You have no business being out here shaming people for doing something they have a right to do. You're dragging people for their constitutional rights.
It's wrong to shame someone for exercising a constitutional right, while he shames her for exercising her constitutional right. And by the way, her right to speech is first and foremost and explicitly articulated. The alleged right to an early term abortion was invented out of thin air by a 9-member court of almost exclusively old white men, demographics Brian otherwise hates and shames this lady for being.
An old white lady telling people what's right for their bodies. Who would have thought that an old white lady would be out in front of a Planned Parenthood? If you're a white person like I am, we have a lot of catching up to do. We have a lot to apologize for.
Yeah, sure, Brian judges people on the basis of skin color, but you've got it all wrong. In fact, it's everyone else who's the real racist.
Don't convince yourself that what you're doing isn't extremely racist. This is a racist act of judgment.
At one point, he actually says, "Shame on you. It's not your job to shame."
Shame. Shame. Shame on you. There's no faith that tells you you are right and everybody else is wrong. There's no faith that tells you it's your job to stand out here and shame people for something that they have a right to do. This is disgusting. This is wrong. This is shameful.
A truly amazingly oblivious contradiction, outdone only by him telling this woman how it's wrong to tell women what to do.
Shame on you. The amount of mental gymnastics it must take to think that you have a right to tell a woman what's right for her body.
And everyone else is a mental gymnast. Brian is perfectly intellectually consistent. And here's the thing, maybe these contradictions could be resolved if this lady was in fact harassing people. Sometimes standing up to a bully requires a little counter-bullying, giving them a taste of their own medicine, so to speak. But there's no evidence that's what this lady was doing. Given Brian apparently just hangs out at this Planned Parenthood as a watchdog for this sort of allegedly abusive behavior, he would have recorded it and he would have showed us as justification for his harassment of this lady. But it never happened. By his own description, all she did was talk to people and hand out leaflets.
You must have something to say. You've had something to say to every single woman that's come in here, every single couple that's come in here. You've had something to say, something to hand them.
And just in case you still think there's a possibility that Brian was justified in this particular case of harassment, maybe this lady did in fact do something abusive that we can't see, consider Exhibit B, Brian targeting minors for doxing for the crime of praying outside of this same Planned Parenthood facility. This from a few weeks ago.
A bunch of pseudo-Christian protesters who've been out here shaming young girls for being here. And so here's the deal. I've got $100 to anybody who will identify any of these three.
So we're
I'm going to
actually
donate to Planned Parenthood.
Babies.
I'm going to donate to Planned Parenthood. So look, a bunch of white people standing up in front of a Planned Parenthood, shaming people. There's nothing Christian about what you're doing. Nothing Christian at all about what you're doing.
And by the way, all of this allowed on Twitter and Periscope. No problem at all. Just don't talk about turning the frickin' frogs gay. That's where they draw the line. But I guess that's none of my business. Now, the irony is, in his quest to stifle Planned Parenthood protest, Brian is going to magnify it significantly. This stunt caught a lot of eyes, notably those of Abby Johnson of Unplanned fame and other pro-life activists, and Abby is officially challenging Brian to exercise his bravery and confront her at the same spot this Friday. Brian says, "Bring it, Bible bullies, bigots, sexists, and misogynists." He's not afraid of you pussy grabbers and baby cagers. See, it's very wrong to put babies in cages. A truly moral man would kill them so they never have that chance. And besides, is he saying that old woman grabbed his genitals? Where was that in the footage? If this actually happens, it'll be the entertainment event of the year so far, but I'm turning my anticipation toward the more realistic outcome, which is the inevitable tweet from Brian justifying why he wasn't there to defend against the biggest Planned Parenthood protest he otherwise says is his personal mission to defeat. Whatever, it'll be no more contradictory than everything else he's said thus far. Just whatever you do, don't shame him for exercising his constitutional rights. That's only for gymnasts with the proper expertise.
Brian charges down the runway, but then...
Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel always. Appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below and especially over on Twitter, that is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to come hang out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.